Good morning, everybody. This is Rob with Casa Corner. I've been spending a lot of time thinking about the epidemic of the mass shootings. And when we talk about anxiety, depression, and suicide, as a company, Embark is trying to get to lower those, certainly to a significant level by 2028. And what I noticed in some of the research is looking at the overall trauma that's created by these mass shootings, and these mass shootings are increasing year over year. We're seeing an increase of those happening, and I have a few statistics here that I'm going to share that were really pretty alarming and motivating to me. But I guess the bigger picture is to look at some of the profiles of the mass shooters, because we all want to understand why. Well, what kind of individual does this, gets to a point where they're so calloused or so out for revenge or looking for some sort of notoriety that comes in a negative way. And the reality is that some of the research is indicating that there are some indicators prior to. We've had some of the mass shooters write very disturbing notes and quite extensive manuscripts about their personal lives and their feelings of hatred and that type of stuff. And some have even posted video blogs about their amount of distress. And for some reason, we've missed it. And the reality is it's been hard to pinpoint and predict who is going to do a mass shooting or not do a mass shooting. So I just wanted to spend a few times on this because we're all being, on some level, impacted by this across our country. It's very scary. If you have children, our children are going to school. You know, one of the latest trends is bulletproof backpacks, which is just horrifying to experience. And we have practice drills in schools around if there's a threat of a mass shooter. And part of the dilemma is you can practice and be prepared, but when that gun goes off, our sympathetic systems react instantaneously, and we, as much practice as we can get, we just don't practice enough to really change our nervous system. And that's really terrifying, and shotguns going off and guns going off can certainly be an overwhelming, stressful experience for our kids and forever impact them. So really scary stuff, and I think it's relevant to all of us. So let me read a few statistics that I came upon. That since 1966 to the present, we've had 169 shooters, 169. And only what's very fascinating is the majority of those have been white males between ages of late teens to approximately 45. Only 3 of those shooters have been females. Only 3 of them. So we're definitely seeing a significance within that population of shooters. In 2018, we had 25 mass shootings with a total of 140 dead. And as of 2019, as of now, we have 23 incidences. And we're only a bit more than halfway through the year in 2019. We've already had 23 incidences of mass shootings, which means 4 or more people died, not including the shooter themselves. Often we have the shooter will kill themselves or be shot by police. So there's some suicidal significance tied into these shootings as well. So 23 incidences as of 2019 with 131 people dead already. Pretty shocking statistics that on average, when we're looking at an average for the past, 15 to 20 years or so, we have an average of 29 incidences of mass shooting per year. So this is definitely an epidemic. I mean, it's very terrifying on many levels. And so I wanted to begin to look at, especially dealing with kids with trauma that we have, in looking into the profiles. There's a lot of these mass shooters who have relinquishment histories, abusive histories, maltreatment, social adjustment problems. We look at emotional distress, social interaction deficits, periods of isolation. Friendship is a little bit interesting. A lot of them report that they did have friends, but there's really not healthy intimacy. And so, yeah, I just wanted to go through a few to mention these for us to be aware of, that the majority of them, the majority of these shooters have traumatic histories in some sort of form. They have feelings of powerlessness. And when those feelings of powerlessness come up, lots of them look towards the infamy or the notoriety, this notorious sort of recognition that comes from the mass shootings in a negative way. The majority of them lack compassion and empathy for others. That really, when we look at Sandy Hook and the killing of these young children, we often ask, well, how could these almost young adults themselves or engage in harming these innocent children? And there really is, at some point in time, there's a shift into maybe the empathy is too hard, that they don't have empathy. Certainly for themselves, there's a lack of sense of self. There's a tremendous amount of shame that's taking place. And that manifests itself, that becomes so sensitive, it becomes such a place of hurt that it actually turns into a lack of compassion. It's too hard to have compassion and empathy. So they just see those children as objects, and then they get shot. I also find it very, very interesting that the majority of them struggle with their own identities. This relationship of shame that I've talked to a lot, that there's a struggle for a sense of identity. Oftentimes there's a series of disappointments in their lives and a history of struggling to connect socially. Not a surprise, a history. So they might have friends, but there's a history to a struggle that they just can't seem to find that empathy, that intimacy that becomes rewarding. So what is the big takeaway? It's hard to identify who a shooter is and their potential, but I guess our take home is to really look at individuals to say, wow, using CASA, commitment, acceptance, and security, we really need to look at treating others with a certain amount of dignity and respect and non-judgmentalness, and set boundaries with them and limits that are safe, but really have a certain amount of empathy and compassion that generates from our own sense of self-worth. So there is something we can do to make a difference. So I guess the point is, what can we do about potential mass shooters? Is really see others that we come encounter with as inherently valuable. And they might push and pull. That's the nature of early developmental trauma. But there is something we can do to impact our society in a whole. Well, thanks for everybody. I think this was a relevant, important topic that we need to begin to talk about and address. Okay, see you next time. Bye-bye.